Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox podcast. Once again, I have Logan with me. Logan, how are you doing?
Doing good, Jeremy. Doing good. Enjoying this nice Halloween. How about you?
Yeah, same. Still sick, as we talked about before the show. Can barely speak, but here we are. Halloween. Normally, I'd go to like the pubs with my mates, but like this year, like it's so cold. Everyone's got things going on, so like I'm kind of happy to just stay in for a change because Halloween. I don't know. It like people dressing up. It's busy. Let's talk about video games, man. Um. Anyway, before we get into all the topics, Logan, what have you been playing?
Oh, Alan Wake 2, Alan Wake 2, and a little bit more of Alan Wake 2. How about you, man?
Well, a bunch of games actually. Alan Wake 2, which we're going to talk about later in the show. A new game called Jusant. It's a new climbing action adventure game. It just launched in Game Pass, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I've been playing Starfield. You know, some people assume that I've put hundreds of hours into Starfield. The truth is, I've probably put maybe 100 in. Just because of this chest infection, it's taken so much energy out of us. I can only play like 30 minutes of a game at a time. But I think I'm almost done with this. Like the main story. Assassin's Creed Mirage. Now, I talked about this on Twitter, and I'll mention it here for people that may have missed it. So, Assassin's Creed Mirage is fantastic. It's back to roots. It's a damn good game. Bit of a problem. I accidentally overwrote over my own save and continued on from an earlier save thinking, oh, well, these missions feel familiar. And basically, I've lost 18 hours of progress. So, yeah.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
awful.
Like, don't get me wrong, it's not the worst thing in the world, but like, when you have a fully upgraded assassin with the skill tree completely filled out and all your gadgets are fully upgraded, like when I opened up my menu and saw that I had the basic knives with no upgrades, I kind of died inside. I'm not gonna lie. like, like going back to four thorn knives that don't make bodies disappear, and I can't pick the knives up afterwards. Heartbroken. Heartbroken. Again, it's not the worst thing in the world, but you know that video that's been going around of Vince McMahon?
Oh, where he's like cutting off the question because it makes him too upset. Yeah.
Yeah, like losing that progress, man. Like, don't get me wrong, Assassin's Creed Mirage, fantastic game. I'll finish it within the next week or two, but part of me died that day because like 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 big things in life are obviously like hurtful and terrible and stuff, but like it's minor annoyances that really get to me, right? Like I don't like to do these things over and over again. Anyway, let's talk about some of the games we've been playing outside. We just talked about what we were playing. I went into my little Assassin's Creed tangent, but I want to talk about Jusant. It just launched in Game Pass. It is really good. I complain all the time about video games not having enough like variety. Like everything seems samey in the modern age, but it's an action adventure game where you climb this colossal stone tower, and it's just fun. It's Unreal Engine 5. It uses all the new lighting techniques and stuff. So even though it's this bright, colorful game, it has amazing lighting. It's literally a climbing game. You know, if you're like me and you probably will never climb a real mountain in real life because like why? Why would I do that? You can do that in game and it's fun. Like, did you play it at all?
I have not, but it's been on my list. I really like Dopenod and everything they've made, so it's definitely one I plan to play.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. Like, it's a very chill game. You're not going to be like running away from dinosaurs or like going through like shooting sections of a game, but it's just fun. It's chill. It seems to be very easy with achievements so far. I put a few hours into it and I unlocked maybe like 6 achievements without even trying, so that's not bad. But yeah, let's get into the topics because it's going to be a juicy show. We have more topics than I originally planned, and let's just get into it. So Modern Warfare 3 releases soon, and it has all the maps from Modern Warfare 2 back in the day, which is a lot of fun. Some amazing maps. I played in the beta, and It's arguably the most fun Call of Duty multiplayer I've played in years. Well, anyway, we just got some news before the show. Everyone knows that this year's Call of Duty was originally going to be this premium expansion pack, right? Where you'd get a campaign, zombies, and maps. And, Activision being Activision, they knew they can get away with it. So they're releasing it as Modern Warfare 3. But the funny thing is, if you go into the Modern Warfare 3 code, it's just listed as Modern Warfare 2. The beta appeared in the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 menu. So we're basically getting sold a £70 expansion. Anyway, that aside, I've been talking for the past few months with one of my mates that it seems a bit of a shame that we're ditching all of that old COD stuff from last year, all of those maps, everything, and then switching to this game. Well, it turns out over time, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 maps from last year are going to be added for free over the next year or so, which is pretty cool. I know one of my friends is going to be really happy with that. Logan, what do you think about this news? Because it pretty much just unifies last year's game with this year's game.
Yeah, on one hand, it's this is old school Activision or 2K or whatever. It's what's another way I can bleed you for $70? But on the other hand, if they're making it to where you can have access to your old maps over time, they bring them back. They're bringing back classic maps. They're adding new content, new story. I can see it being worth it, and I do plan to jump in. Call of Duty's been around 20 years now. Happy birthday to Call of Duty. And I don't see it going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of Call of Duty. I've said online and many times on my channel that I kind of fell off Call of Duty multiplayer in 2010, 2011. Modern Warfare 3 came out, and me and all my mates ditched it. We hated that game. Terrible maps. The gameplay fell off. It felt buggier than previous COD games. And then I moved to Battlefield. But, multiplayer in general, I kind of just been off for years. So now I'm, getting back into Call of Duty multiplayer again. And I don't know, it's been fun. The funny thing is you can tell there's a big difference between generations of Call of Duty players. Because you have someone like me, and this is going off the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 beta, where I'm running around like a normal person, aiming my gun. But you have these people running around the map, like chipmunks, right? Sliding all over the place, cancelling weapon, weapon swaps and that, who knows, for whatever reason. And I'm who enjoys games like this? Logan, you've probably seen those clips where people are running around like a hamster on acid, right?
Yeah, I mean, you see Nicki Minaj just flying out of nowhere and drop kick you and then shoot you in the face with a shotgun, or you've got Captain Price throwing a knife across the map, or it's insane. It's almost become a hero shooter in and of itself now, which is wild considering where COD started from. But it seems like maybe this next one will harken back to some old roots, hopefully. So fingers crossed for that.
Yeah, the older map design, it did feel like it was kind of forcing players to play normal people. Because my God, the way people play Call of Duty now, maybe I sound like an old fart when I say this, but I don't care. People aren't playing Call of Duty properly. You shouldn't be sliding around all over the place. And why you're playing as Nicki Minaj? It's Call of Duty. It's a military shooter. Granted, we have Homelander running around as well, and I think I love Homelander, but that's still ridiculous, But yeah, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, it's getting, Modern Warfare 2 content. I've seen a lot of people complain, but the way I see it is it's more maps, If you invest a year into Call of Duty, do we really want to drop it the next year? Drop everything about it? And the way I see it, I think Call of Duty from now on is going to be on a 2-year cycle, where 1 year you buy, Modern Warfare, we'll call it Black Ops 5 next year. And then the following year, we're going to get the premium expansion, which is, zombies, campaign, maps, which is, I think that's a better way to go about it. I really do, because ditching your game to buy a new one every year and just leave all your multiplayer stuff behind it, that seems stupid. Anyway, that's Call of Duty out of the way. Although I do find it funny that the pictures are going around today that PlayStation's coming out with the new Slim console, and it's bundled with Modern Warfare. And if you really think about it, all of those sales, at least a lot of them, are going to be counted in Microsoft's overall quarterly statements in March. Like, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, is Sony paying for Xbox exclusives? Let's go.
we can joke about it, but it is kind of true. Like, and it's kind of weird if you think about it. Microsoft made bank off Minecraft. Like, Minecraft went multi-platform a long time ago. When it came to consoles after PC. But if you really think about it, like, Minecraft sold, I think it was 125 million copies when Microsoft bought them, and now they've sold 300 million copies of Minecraft.
It's an astronomical amount of money.
Yeah, and it's on a bunch of devices. It's on Switch. I think there's a 3DS version. Like, if you have a device with a screen on it, Minecraft's on it, and Microsoft makes that money, and it's going to be the same with Call of Duty, which is crazy. The amount of money Call of Duty makes every year is kind of unfathomable. So yeah, but hey, that's going back to me getting single player games in Game Pass, so I'm happy, But yeah, Call of Duty out of the way. We got some new Call of Duty. I've got Call of Duty in the mind. We got some new Metal Gear Solid news, which kind of went live yesterday, but not many people are talking about it. So, the new collection's out. It's got the HD collection, Metal Gear Solid, and the NES games, and the PC version, all that stuff. And, there's been mixed reviews, because if you own the HD collection on Xbox, you basically already own most of that collection. Thankfully, you can buy them a la carte, individually. Well, anyway, in the new trailer for for Master Collection Volume 1, David Hayter's in the trailer, which surprised a lot of people, because he kind of, everyone thought he stepped back because of Metal Gear Solid 5, but that was Kojima. He wanted a big, Hollywood actor to be Snake. And it looks like David Hayter is back on board for good now as Solid Snake. And personally, I love that. They said there's more to come. We all know we're going to get a Master Collection Volume 2. I have a theory that they're going to get David Hayter to completely redo Venom Snake's lines for Metal Gear Solid 5. So, I don't know. What do you think about that, Logan? Because, like, David Hayter coming back to Metal Gear, it's kind of big news.
Yeah, it is. You always want to be on good terms with your iconic voices and actors and representation in games. And so the fact that it seems like they've kind of mended a bridge there is really good news. And I agree, he's been associated with the franchise forever. So if you're going to re-release these games and want to justify a price for it, having him come back and do the lines would be good justification for the price.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what the future holds for Metal Gear Solid, but, like, David Hayter is just, like, iconic. Like, that voice is Snake. And I liked, Kiefer Sutherland's version. But if you know the story to that game, well, and everything that happened behind the scenes, I can kind of see why, people were angry and stuff. But I'm just happy to see him back. I think it's a good thing, because it makes it look like Konami. Can't speak today, apparently. Konami apparently seems to be taking gaming seriously again, because for the longest time they weren't. Like, if you look at last generation, they put out Metal Gear Solid 5, and that's pretty much it. Like, I can't think of any major title by Konami. So, hey, it's a good step in the right direction, and, I'm happy to see, Metal Gear come back, because that franchise has been gone for far too long. And the space between Metal Gear games is just ridiculous. Metal Gear Solid 4 released in, 2008, 2007? And Metal Gear Solid 5 released in 2015. Like, almost a decade between games is just... Especially last generation when it was easy to make games. I don't know, it's just crazy. Anyway, just happy to see David Hayter back. That's everything I want to say on that. You know what? Screw it. Let's talk about Alan Wake. Because... wow. Right? To get this out of the way, I love the first game. When that game came out, it launched the same day as Red Dead Redemption, which was not the best idea in any stretch of the imagination. And, the masses absolutely bought Red Dead. But you had this sort of niche horror game come out where, back in the day, horror games weren't really popular. Back in the 360 generation, because horror games kind of shifted to these action games. You had Resident Evil 4, which, made Resident Evil 5 for what it was. It was a full-on action game. Silent Hill became a lot more action-focused. So, like, horror games by 2010 weren't really what they are now. And anyway, I got Alan Wake. I loved it. I was looking forward to that for years. And honestly, I can't really pick many faults with that first game. I really can't. Its weird resolution back on the 360 was noticeable, but outside of that, like, Alan Wake was brilliant. I thought the combat in that game was excellent. And, I never thought the sequel would come along. Polygon, I think it was, that came out with at least they leaked the prototype for Alan Wake 2, the original Alan Wake 2, and it looked like more Alan Wake, which I would have been fine with. Anyway, for the longest time, we didn't think there was going to be a sequel. It gets announced, and here we are, and I've played it. And this game's going to be a lot of people's game of the year. It really came out of nowhere, and like, I always thought Alan Wake 2 was going to be good. I had no doubts about it. But I didn't expect it to be, like, Game of the Year contender, may actually be one of the best games of the generation contender. Because I've never seen a game like this. We've talked about in previous episodes that, and I've ranted about it a lot, I think gaming doesn't have much variety when it comes to, like, the AAA space. It's all the same to me, right? Every game, every third-person game feels the same. And I'm playing Alan Wake 2, and I'm like, this is a completely different experience. Like, I've never played a horror game like this. I've never played any game like this. And the funny thing is, this game has the best use of SSD instant loading, and Remedy have never talked about it. Other games, and this isn't a dig at Sony, but like any developer for the past 2 years, if it has any instant world switching, they big it up in the market and they talking about it for ages, and they make it a big thing. Well, Remedy haven't even spoke about instant loading and what this game does. And it has the best use of instant loading and world changing I've ever seen in a video game. And they didn't even market it. And it's like, Logan, while I take a breath, like, you've played the game. What do you think?
Well, it is undoubtedly, unquestionably one of my top games of the generation and game of the year contenders. It's insane when, when this year comes to an end and we all sit back and we reflect and we look at all the games that came out this year because of, COVID, delays, whatever reason, that year of our Lord 2023, we have all these incredible games just come out at the same year. It will be one of the best years ever in gaming. It is insane. And the titles, everything, it is so stacked, it's ridiculous. And this one is one of the best, and maybe I'm kind of starting to lean towards it might be the best one. It is just otherworldly incredible. I've been waiting 13 years for this game. I loved the first one, everything about it. I know visually it has not held up that great, even the remaster, but you know what? Visuals are not the end of the world to me. As long as I enjoy it, the characters, the gameplay, the lore, whatever. If it looks okay or it looks beautiful, either way I'm cool as long as I love everything else. But this one, my word, it is. You know how we talked about last time about people biting off more than they can chew and trying to do everything? Well, Remedy, this is one of those lightning in a bottle games. Like, they managed to do everything we talked about that sometimes you have to just choose. They managed to somehow get all of them into this game. It is phenomenal. It is the best parts of True Detective, Twin Peaks, Stephen King, Sherlock Holmes, some Shakespeare thrown in. Like if you're a writer, this is like your fever dream of a game. It is just phenomenal. The characters are brilliantly done. The gameplay is fantastic. It's taken Alan Wake 1 gameplay and mixed it with Resident Evil 2 remastered or remake, and just it's awesome. Obviously I won't get into story details because of spoilers, but the way you can switch between the characters and the connectedness of the entire, we'll call it Wake universe of Control, Alan Wake, Quantum Break, and yes, in this it's just phenomenal. Like you see Easter eggs and all these references to things that were maybe even obscure in the other games, but pop up here, and you're like, oh my gosh, I know what that is, or I know what that reference is, or whoa, I was not expecting to see that character here. But it doesn't feel like fan service or just like a Stanley bus driver cameo. It feels like it has purpose. Like it's a big time, like this isn't a shallow multiversal, like okay, now we got to find a way to find this superhero here, so we're going to randomly put him in a donut shop in the corner drinking coffee so that we can somehow connect this universe. Like everything makes sense. And the gunplay is so great. Like being able to switch between types of guns and all the puzzles. I'm loving the nursery rhymes. Like those are such cool puzzles. Like won't get into too much detail about it, but basically you find these nursery rhyme puzzles, you read them, and you use these objects to solve them, and they change things around you. And it's just, and then the story perfectly continues the events of all the other ones, and I cannot say enough positive about this game. I'm just in love with this game. It is so good.
Yeah, I mean, Remedy's always experimented with live action stuff. So in Alan Wake 1, you have, Mr. Scratch on the TV and all the, Night Falls stuff. Night Springs, which is basically, Twin Peaks. And that was that, in Quantum Break, they had these entire, like, people like to, by the way, bit of a tangent, people keep calling the live action stuff in Quantum Break TV show, but the way the devs always talked about it and the way it's integrated in the game, it's more like it's just live action cutscenes. Anyway, that aside, so they have live action stuff in this as well, but you have like TVs with like trailers on, and they like really corny trailers, which are really cool. There's segments where Alan Wake is kind of like at a talk show, which is like really well done. And like no spoilers. We're not going to talk about spoilers at all. Just I'll basically talk about the stuff that's in the marketing material, stuff you can find yourselves. But their game is brilliant. Like again, I thought it was going to be good. I didn't expect it to be. Oh, this might be Game of the Year. And it just goes to show how good of a year it's been when I'm looking at my top 10 list of best games of the year, and there's maybe 3 or 4 that I could interchange for first place. Like, that isn't something that happens every year. Like, normally for me, there's one definitive game that is definitely Game of the Year. But I've played 4 games now this year that I could easily give number 1. So when I do my 10 best games of the year, basically the top 3 is going to be, basically 1. But, like, it's incredible. Excuse me. Visual fidelity. Let's get this out of the way. I've never played a game that looked this good. Right? There's parts where, Alan or Saga's walking down a corridor or through the woods, and, like, it looks like you're looking at a photo or a real film. The lighting is incredible. The level of detail is incredible. And when I talk about the instant world switching thing, there's a part earlier in the game where you're approaching this stone altar, and the world's kind of not just changing back and forth between 2 different places, but it merges together. So you have like this rocky ground surface that becomes like a forest surface, and then it comes becomes like combined. Like I've never seen games do this before, and it's very refreshing because again, it's not your typical third-person game. It's not. It's good, and the game isn't as linear as I thought it was going to be. The first Alan Wake game is, we can call it linear, but it's still a pretty big game. But going into the sequel, I was expecting a bog standard single player linear horror game. I was basically expecting a Resident Evil remake, but new Alan Wake game. And no, the game is kind of open. You can go back to previous areas, and I have to say this: it's probably the scariest game I've ever played. Like,
Oh my god. There was one part that, like, not being spoilery, but it was. It basically felt like they took some notes from Outlast, and yeah, it was like, oh my word.
yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, the part that got me the most was actually in the trailer. So you enter this sort of like cabin. A deer runs across the room, thinking, "Okay, that's the jump scare." You take 3
Oh
feet,
yeah.
and then someone bursts out of the wall, and like I think my spirit left my body. Like, and I've like, as much as I've made gifs of that segment of the game, I've included that bit in video when I've talked about the game, and I just didn't see it coming, and it happened, and I almost crapped myself. I'm not gonna lie. And the thing is, I'll admit I'm a bit of a scaredy cat when it comes to horror games. Like, it's rare for me to play horror just because I feel like my heart's going to implode. So, like, if you see me post footage of a horror game, it's rare I do that. Alan Wake was... Like, I put it like this, I didn't play the Resident Evil 4 remake because I played the demo and I couldn't aim for some reason. The aiming in that game felt really off. And I felt like my heart was going to explode. So it's like, maybe not for me. We'll try again with the next Resident Evil game. But yeah, Alan Wake, it's brilliant. The developers say that you can play it without playing the first game. Now, I think they are lying.
I respectfully disagree, even though I don't work there.
Yeah, I respect Remedy. Sam Lake. Sam Lake's one of my favorite developers and game creators. Which we'll talk about in a bit with another game he wants to do. But when they say you don't have to play the first game, yes, you bloody do, right? The game basically throws you into the deep end if you haven't played the first game. People have asked me, do you need to play American Nightmare, which is the smaller, Xbox arcade style game? And from what I've played so far, you don't really need to have played that. There are subtle references to it, like Alan's wearing the same, plaid shirt type thing. But outside of that, there's not really much of that game in this. But you bloody should need to play the first game. As far as I know...
And Control.
Yeah, and Control. To a less extent, I'd say Control, but especially Alan Wake. But, fortunately, Alan Wake, I believe, is still on sale. It's £8.24. I highly recommend it. The remaster is great, but it retains, the kind of, I don't want to say essence of the first game, the sequel. You still have to aim with the flashlight and, then hit them with the gun. It's just good. It really is. And I just saw on Twitter right now that, it's Rand's Game of the Year and one of the best games of the generation. He's bloody right, because it's good. It's damn good. Once every so often a game comes along and it blows you away, right? Elden Ring, last year, blew me away. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, blew me away. And, I'm loving Starfield. That may end up being my game of the year. It's going to be a tough call this year because, for me, Starfield is more of an experience game. It's a game I'm playing over a long time. But when it comes to, cinematic storytelling, Alan Wake has to be one of the best I've ever played. And... I was disappointed when we first heard that you play 50% of the game as this new Saga character and 50% is Alan Wake, because to me, if I'm playing Alan Wake, the video game, I want to play it as Alan Wake. But the way they've done it is really smart. The new character Saga, like you said before, it is basically True Detective. there's some clear inspirations from True Detective, and I'm going to say season 1 of True Detective, the one with Matthew McConaughey, as in the good season. But like, it's good. It's really good, and it's kind of put them on the map. Like, for me, Remedy's always been one of the best game developers. They really have. Apparently, this game's been made for like $50 million or something. And
Oh, they'll break that.
yeah, they should make their money back. It's good that they moved it out of the way from like Assassin's Creed and stuff. Spider-Man and all that. But like, it came out a few days ago. It's fantastic. People are now beginning to realize that Sam Lake is a genius. Like it's like he's always been a creative genius. Like, have you not played any of his previous games? Like, people give Quantum Break all this crap, but like, that is a very well thought out, smart game. Alan Wake, the plot of that game is phenomenal. Control, I think Control's story is slightly weaker, but it's still a smart game. And like, if you are a publisher right now and you're looking for something interesting, you're looking for something with a bit pizzazz, a bit something that'll pop, right? Something that'll make people think, wow. They have to hire Remedy, because Sam Lake recently came out in an interview and he said he has an idea for a mega big budget, dark, gritty, gothic fantasy game. Now, as a fan of Sam Lake and of gothic fantasy, someone needs to get on that ASAP, because I can only imagine the things they could come up with gothic fantasy and, Sam Lake's mind. And I am a bit fanboying out here over Sam Lake, because like, he's a genius. Like, he's been a genius for years. Like, we don't have a lot of people in the game industry where you can look at and think they are a gaming visionary, right? Kojima, like, his stuff is backcrap crazy, but he's a genius. He's a creative genius, and it's the same with Sam Lake. And like, I know a few people have mentioned this, and I have as well. Like, Microsoft should really try and see if they can publish their next game. As far as I know, Epic's 2-game deal was the remaster and the Alan Wake sequel. Remedy has a bunch of games in development. They have Control 2. They have the Control spin-off, which is a PvPvE game. I'll just put this out there, I won't be playing that. Max Payne 1 and 2 remake, which will actually be one game, which I think is the best decision ever. But yeah, the future's bright for Remedy. I hope they have a huge success with this. I noticed that the remaster popped up in the top 5 in the UK recently, so people are obviously getting excited for it. And what can I say? I'm hyped. The game's going to get free DLC as well. So it's going to get a free photo mode. The new Game Plus is also going to be included in the update. They did kind of say that the free DLC would be substantial. So who knows what that'll be. There's also going to be 2 premium expansions. I think you can get the expansion pass for £15. I haven't checked, but it's around 15 for the expansions. But yeah, what can I say? I'm about 7 hours in, I think, and I can say it's probably going to be an absolute masterpiece. I've only ever given 5 games a 10 out of 10. Who knows what the end of this year is going to look like? Logan, have you got anything else to say on Alan Wake and basically anything Sam Lake related with his upcoming projects and stuff he's wanting to do?
I mean, basically echoing you. Like, I've seen some comments out there that people said we've kind of reached a new era with the end of the Rockstar devs. Like, not Rockstar as in like the company, but you know what I mean. Like, heroic, larger than life personalities, or just phenomenal, transcendent writers and creators. Well, I actually beg to differ, because, I mean, we've got Kojima, who's still going very strong, and he's now doing a Microsoft exclusive. You've got, Sam Lake, who I put on that pedestal. He is incredible, and the work Remedy has done, even if they've not sold well, have been just phenomenal. I remember playing through Max Payne 1 and 2 and just being blown away by just how they managed to make a noir thriller, but also fascinating and also very deep and, with context and content, not just this washed up cop who's bitter and drinks a lot and is angry at life. Like, they managed to take a tired trope and make it something extraordinary. and the gameplay innovations. And then, obviously Alan Wake, Control, and American Nightmare and Quantum Break are fantastic. I love all their stuff. He's absolutely a rockstar dev, and Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, whoever should line up and give him a blank check to make whatever fantasy game he wants to make. Because I would almost guarantee you it would be brilliant. And, as far as Alan Wake 2 status, like, this might be a cop out, but I think this year, because of just how insane it is and how it is literally an otherworldly all time year, I will have a games of the year because they're so different. And I know some people roll their eyes and go, "Oh, you gotta pick one." I'm like, "No, I don't. It's my list. I can do what I want." But it's like Star Wars Jedi Survivor is phenomenal in its story and its combat and world building, and it's like, wow, this is the best Star Wars experience ever, and that's one of my games of the year. And then Starfield is this huge exploration. You go out into the universe, and then turns out maybe it's not just this universe, and then there's all this stuff, and it's the most expansive Bethesda game ever made. And then you have Alan Wake 2, which is a cinematic literary work of art that also scares the absolute bejeez out of you and is like Resident Evil mixed with all those shows we already talked about. That's one of my games of the year. It's like I can't really fault anybody for any individual choice they make this year because I think there are so many games that absolutely deserve it. I just don't want a Hi-Fi Rush to get forgotten because I think that one absolutely deserves to be on there too. And that's why I would call on Jeff Keighley to expand the list this year. Like, five is not going to cut it this year.
Yeah, the whole five thing, that's weird because like for me, the year kicked off. We got the Dead Space remake, and I was blown away. That Dead Space
Yeah, I
remake.
didn't even mention that one.
Yeah, like that's how good the year's been. And I was thinking like this is a remake of a 360 game, and it's phenomenal. And then Hi-Fi Rush came out, and that is like it has it kind of this weird like sort of like anime vibe to it, like, in a good sense, I mean. But like it was really good, and I've never played anything like it. It was basically like an Xbox version of Devil May Cry, but in a cartoon. And then Hogwarts Legacy came out, and it provided me this like experience I've wanted since I was a kid. The Hogwarts school experience. And granted, it has its issues. That I did not give that a 10 out of 10. I will say this: that was the studio's first AAA game, and they did that. That's like that studio has good stuff ahead. Although I don't know how they're going to get that running on the Switch, which is meant to come out next month. So anyway, but Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Up until now, it's my game of the year. I'm almost done with Starfield. Who knows where that'll be? But Alan Wake, like that threw a spanner in the mix, like a big old wrench in the mix because it's brilliant. It really is. For people that haven't played it, I just highly recommend play the first game if you can. It's backwards compatible. The backwards compatible version does actually have 60 FPS boost. So if you don't want to get the remaster, you can at least play it at 60. I loved the gameplay in that first game. I think it's still good. But yeah, Alan Wake 2, like, blown away. Absolutely blown away. And I love the fact that people are talking about Remedy now. Quantum Break has been trending almost daily since the game released. So, like, in the UK. So, like, I'm just happy people are giving that studio, like, the credit they deserve. Because when you launch a game that had been in development for, like, 5 or 6 years, the first Alan Wake, and then release it the same day as a new Rockstar open world game, like, they were forgotten about. Nobody was talking about Alan Wake. Thankfully, it became a cult classic and sold well over time, but, like, Remedy, they are solidified, brilliant developer, and I wish them the best. I hope more people get this game because it deserves to be a huge success. Anyway.
If I may say one more thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, just as a minor footnote, for those who are a bit um squeamish about horror games, or there is some content in this game that some might find disturbing. I know in the accessibility options you can choose to turn off or tone down some stuff. So just as a heads up, I won't get into spoilers, but there's some stuff you might go, "What on earth?" But you can tone that down if you choose.
Yeah, and I will say this: if anyone does want to stream the game,
Good luck.
yeah, good luck. Apparently, all of the music has been whitelisted, and by the way, the soundtrack.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah, like they have Port of the Fallback. They have a bunch of like different artists. Like it has. I'm putting this out there. Best soundtrack of the year because it is so good. And granted, we have been rambling on for Alan Wake for like 15 minutes, but like it is so good. Like it came out of nowhere, and it's brilliant. But yeah, the soundtrack, it's excellent. Again, it's whitelisted, so apparently you can play it on stream. But yeah, anyway, so this isn't a spoiler, but basically within the first 2 minutes of the game, you see a dude's wee wee. I can't say certain words on the channel because YouTube's weird, but you see a dude's, wiener. And if you're playing that on stream, you may not want to turn the camera around. Like you may want to be careful, because again, issues. But yeah, Alan Wake 2. I may end up saying it's a masterpiece. Anyway, we'll move on. We're about 44 minutes into the show. If you're enjoying it, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. YouTube doesn't do its sharing stuff it's crap. YouTube never shares videos properly. I put out a new video last night. 10 biggest new games of the year. 10 biggest new games coming to Xbox in November. YouTube has barely shared it. Thank you very much, YouTube. Took a long time to put that video together. Anyway, Super Chat's alive if you want to support the channel and want anything read out or answered. Anyway, Logan, let's get into the weird stuff of the week. Industry layoffs. For an industry I absolutely love. I love the gaming industry. It makes more money than movies, music combined. Like, absolute colossal industry. And the weird thing about gaming is that the game industry is very small. Like, when it comes to, like, numbers of people compared to, like, movies and music and television. And it's so sad that we see these layoffs are happening right now. You look at Embracer. They became an embarrassingly bloated publisher by buying these. They were buying a studio every other Tuesday. Like, people make fun of Microsoft buying stuff. Embracer was buying studios constantly, buying IP constantly. Like, Embracer owns the Lord of the Rings intellectual property. Like, why did that? Why? When did that happen? So anyway, they laid off a bunch of people. They are looking to sell studios off, which we've talked about before. Microsoft, there's been some layoffs. Granted, the whole Activision Blizzard thing, there are going to be people they need to just let go because you don't want two people of the same position. It always works like that in business. But again, it's crappy to see people let go. And, Sony's had a bunch of layoffs. We need to talk about this because, Bungie is Xbox's history, They are making Marathon, which is coming to Xbox. Marathon, the first-person shooter, it's now coming out in 2025. Honestly, putting this out there, I thought that game was 2025 anyway. I must have just missed the press release, but that game's now coming out in 2025. The Bungie expansion, The Final Shape, is coming out in June 2024. And Bungie, unfortunately, has had a crap ton of layoffs. It's been bad over there. I have the list right here. But, it's kind of crazy what's happened because Destiny is a huge game. I don't play Destiny because I don't really play those, shared worlds, multiplayer style games. But, this is absolutely massive. So, around 100 employees have been impacted. This is from Bungie sales, obviously. Revenue of Bungie is now 45% below projections, which I want to talk about in a minute. Destiny 2 has had a weak player retention after Lightfall, which I want to talk about. And bear in mind, I don't know anything about Destiny, but I know enough about the behind-the-scenes crap that I can talk about this. Layoffs part of a wider PlayStation money-saving initiative, which we're going to talk about. It's sad. I don't think people should make jokes about this stuff. It's unfortunate, but like it's interesting because Destiny is a huge intellectual property, like absolutely massive. From what I played of the first game and the second game, like the gunplay is excellent, the visuals gorgeous, soundtrack amazing. For me, the story was much left to be desired. The story wasn't good. I played the first game. I played the entirety of the story, and then I didn't play the expansions, and then I played the beta for the sequel. Well, anyway, the revenue being down is the big one. I think people have to look at, because if you look at something like Bungie, they have this single game that is meant to bring in all their money throughout the year, and they put out these expansions. Like Bungie has like a few hundred people working at the studio. Destiny isn't that type of game you hear people talk about, and I think I figured out why. It's the reason I don't really play Destiny. I could basically be classed as a new player, right? If you buy Destiny now, it's apparently the hardest game to get into, because when the game came out and you started, the game takes place in the tower, and the tower's being attacked from, like, I'll just call them aliens or whatever, and you have to defend the tower, and then you end up going to this farm or whatever. Well, if you start the game now, the game doesn't start that way. You're basically thrown into the deep end, because Destiny is so bloated when it comes to the amount of like files and content there is in the overall Destiny experience. They had to delete chapters and cutscenes and story elements and stuff just so you can fit it on your bloody hard drive or SSD. And like for Destiny can't grow because it's so bloated. There's no reason for a new player to pick up Destiny. And I never see people pick up Destiny and say, hey, I've just picked up Destiny for the first time and I'm enjoying it. Like, Logan, have you ever seen anyone in the past, I want to say 2 years, anyone just randomly say on Twitter, hey, I just bought Destiny?
No, I haven't. In fact, like the only people I see playing Destiny are like the people that are hardcore like zealots for it, that are like they have clans and all kinds of group chats and parties, and go on raids and all kinds of stuff. Like the real hardcore, like been there since day one types. I don't see casuals jumping in and becoming enthralled with it, or other competitive type gamers try it out and stick with it. It definitely, it seems like you're all in day one, ride or die, or you're kind of just like screwed if you jump in.
Yeah, considering I don't play Destiny, I'm not well versed of the story, but like I just say, Chizno in chat just said like you can't even play, you can't even play all the campaigns. Like that's crazy, right? So you have this game that came out in 2017. It has these expansive lore and all these expansions, and as a new player, you can't jump in and know what you're doing. So basically, you're jumping into the entire Star Wars franchise at what? Ahsoka? You've missed out on everything up until that point. And like that's just so much content people are missing out on. And like I put it like this, I check the store out all the time, like, most played games, most top paid games, and all that stuff. Basically the top list on the Xbox store. And all these games go up and down. Skate 3 is always in there for some reason. But I never see Destiny there, because no new player has a reason to play Destiny. If you're a current Destiny player and you've been there since day one, you're probably having the best time ever. Probably an awesome game, because again, the gunplay was excellent. But there's no reason for a new player to join. And as a service-based game, that is bad for business. That is extremely bad. Like when you own a games as a service, you're meant to be entertaining the players you already have and bringing in new players, but Destiny wasn't bringing in new players. So you have this studio of hundreds of people where they have to make new content every year for this game, and they seemingly don't put out a ton of content every year. Then where are they making the money? Microtransactions? And from what I can tell, the Destiny community hate the microtransactions in that game. So like something's got to give at that point, and they've let people go. Everyone knows at the minute that Sony's kind of just like, tightening loose ends, like trying to save money in places. And It's awful. It's a shame. It's a fact. And like some of the stuff that people that have worked there since day one. There's people that worked at Bungie for like 20 years or something, and they've just been laid off out of the blue. But corporates up top at Bungie, they get to keep their job. It's shocking how much this has happened over the past year, like just constant layoffs in the industry. And we talked about this last week, Logan, and maybe it's because like it's something I actually believe, where I think the cost of making video games is way too much now. I remember back in the day, I sound like an old fart. I remember like Call of Duty games costing like 30 million to make, and did make $1 billion in like a single day. But like you have these games that are just like Destiny's this expensive game, and people want content for it all the time because a lot of people that play those styles of games, they play them every single day or every single week, and it's like you want new content, but they're not coming out with content, so you don't really have much reason to go back there. And it's like, is their content monetized? Is it monetized in a good way? And like you look at these like smaller games, right? Logan, remember earlier in the year when there was like 5 live service games by indie developers that were just announced to get shut down in a week?
Yeah, it was pretty depressing.
Yeah, and like those small developers, they can't afford to keep the lights on and keep these small like multiplayer style games going. And then you have somewhere like Bungie, like again, they're not getting new players. They just aren't. Like if you've been playing Destiny every single expansion since day one, it's probably a good time. Although I did hear people weren't happy with the last expansion, but like Bungie and everything that's going on in the industry at the minute, I think it just isn't sustainable. I really don't. I think that games cost too much to make. We want like the hyper-realistic everything for games. And I don't know, maybe I'm a bit paranoid, but I think that I'll put it like this, and I'll be wondering if anyone chat's noticed this. You know how you have these indie games that go out and get great reviews from like IGN and GameSpot? Like it's an indie game made by 2 people in a shed, and it gets like 10 out of 10 game of the year, and it's a pixelated game. And then you have these other games, these photorealistic games like Alan Wake and stuff, getting 10 out of 10s. Have you noticed that AA games never get great reviews, no matter how good they are?
Yeah, it seems kind of like they're the black sheep of the industry a little bit. Like they get labeled with Eurojank or like it's Game Pass fodder, that kind of thing. And they're good games. Some of my favorite games I've played have been that not quite AAA, but better than a 2-man team game. And for whatever reason, they seem to always be doomed for that 7 to 8 or maybe 8.5 range score scale, which I don't even like scoring scales anymore. But yeah, it does seem like it's either go big or be a tiny little minuscule project. It's like there seems to be, the industry seems to have an abstain for just average sized experiences that you can make in a good amount of time, make your money back, but it's not like a jackpot revenue. But, it's definitely bigger than what a 2-man guys in a garage can do upstate.
Because there was an indie game that came out in, I think it was the 1st of September, or it was the end of August, called Sea of Stars. An absolutely beautiful, brilliant JRPG style game, which I need to get back to. It's also on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. And it's a game people need to play. And that game was getting like 9s and 10s across the board. And then you have Alan Wake 2. I'm just using Alan Wake as an example. You have this photorealistic game that has the production value of something with $200 million. It's a AAA game, 9s and 10s across the board. But I'm looking at that RoboCop game that came out today. I'll say it comes out properly on the 2nd of November. That game's getting 7 and 8s. And I've read some reviews. Some people are saying it's like the best like licensed like shooter ever made. It's it's way better than Terminator, Resistance, and all this stuff. And I'm thinking like I can't remember the last AA game that got a 9 or above. It's like AA games or smaller AAA style games like get looked at differently, and I think that's a huge problem with the industry at the minute. And I don't think this is people's fault. I think this is a big like journalism fault thing, because if you have IGN saying this pixelated JRPG is a 10 out of 10 and this AAA game is 10 out of 10, like the AA games, the games I recommend people should buy and check out, nobody knows they exist. And if people check them out, they always get like 6s and 7s from IGN and places like that. Like the AA game, nobody pays attention to. And you have all these layoffs from these companies where they only put out AAA games throughout the year. I don't know. I just think that there's going to be something happening in the game industry in the next, I want to say, 2 years. Like, maybe not a full-on crash, but like video games cost too much to make. Video games now cost £70 and $70. Some publishers, right? I know this is 100% fact. Some publishers want to raise the price to 80 in the next few years. Bandai's already tried it on Xbox with Ni no Kuni 2. That game's £80. That's crazy. And it's a port of a 5-year-old game. There's something, at some point, something's got to give. And I don't know, like, gamers are fed up of being given these games that cost way too much. I put it like this. Alan Wake 2, again, we talked about Alan Wake. That game launched at $49.99 in the UK. Because Epic Games is publishing it. They've said they've been able to lower the price of the game because they're not doing physical copies. And I'm like, okay, right? So, considering the industry is moving mainly towards digital anyway, are we going to see a reduction in game price for a lot of these games? We already know the answer to that, but I don't know. Yeah, no. I think the industry's hurting. Like, Logan, like, I know I had a bit of a ramble there, but like, what's your thought on the whole, like, Bungie, all the layoffs, maybe like the stuff at Sony, all this stuff? Because I've been talking for like 45 minutes.
Well, this might come off as little long-winded, but I'll get to my point eventually. Basically, the whole Bungie thing reminds me of y'all know I'm a big NBA basketball guy. I'm a Thunder fan, and but I follow the NBA itself religiously. And there was this big trade that just happened today. James Harden got traded to the Los Angeles Clippers. It's been like he has been traded so much within the last few years. It just, I don't know. I was sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, this kind of reminds me of the Bungie thing. Because, like, okay, listen as I go back a little bit. You have a talented player starting off his career. He's on a really young, up-and-coming team. Does really, really well. And then, it's like they have to make a change. He goes to a different team. He does really, really well for a while. And then it's like, oh no, now there's some things. Now I'm going to leave this team and I'm going to go to this team. And then you're there for a little bit. And then it's like, nope. Gotta abort. Gotta go somewhere else. And then you go to another team. And then you're there for a brief amount of time. And then it's like, oh, guess what? It's me again. I have problems. It's time for me to go. And then you go to yet another squad. And it's like, at some point, it's like, okay, now we compare to Bungie. Okay, Bungie was with Microsoft for a long, long time. The original Halos, Halo Reach, did phenomenal stuff. They got their independence. They joined Activision. Okay, they're with Activision for a while. Things are going really good with this Destiny. Then they get discontent and unhappy, blame everything on Activision. They leave. Okay, and then they're independent for a while, and then they're happy, and then they join Sony. And then now all this stuff is coming out, and there's massive purge, basically, of roster, and, 100 people, including people who'd been there 20, 25 years, like the lady who designed the original Halo logo and some key art, and the guy, one of the key scorers and, musicians for Halo and Destiny, he's gone now too. And it's like, and now there's, more murmurings and, people unhappy, and like how things went down seems a little odd to people. And you go and you sit back and you go, okay, what's the one constant, like in the Harden situation? It's okay, what has remained the same? The individual, or in this case, the studio. The studio has managed to find itself unhappy at every single juncture of its journey. And at some point, you got to go, okay, what has been the same this whole entire time? And you can't blame that on Microsoft. You can't blame that on Activision. And you can't blame that on Sony. At some point, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, you know what? Maybe Bungie just isn't Bungie anymore. It isn't. There needs to be something else going on. And so that's kind of my long-winded take on Bungie, is that Phil and Xbox dodged a massive bullet not paying for them and not buying them and letting Sony overpay them. And because, my word, you have this whole fiasco. You have people getting mad at the expansions. You have, you know, content, falling off a cliff. You have they failed they failed to reach their financial goals by 45%, which is massive. Almost half of what they expected to make is bad. And they have all this stuff. They went in and were called in to be the quality control for Naughty Dog, who is a revered studio, and basically told them, hey, your work isn't good enough for this multiplayer game. You should axe this. And so then, supposedly that's what happened. And then now you go back and you see all this happen. You're like, maybe the studio wasn't the best idea to tell a studio that's done a really great job on so many other things that their thing isn't up to snuff. Maybe, maybe you're asking the wrong group to do this right now. And it's just all blowing up. And then you have Jim leaving, you know, just so happens right after the ABK deal is finalized, and he's spent, unholy amount of money with legal resources and PR trying to get this thing killed off. It fails spectacularly. All these documents are leaked and come out in the press, make them look really bad and weak and embarrassing. And then you have devs getting let go from teams that had been there for a long time, studios downsizing. It's just an absolute cluster cluck. And then you have Epic Games as well, who is, basically they're like, turns out we were running Epic Store as a massive, windfall of resources, and we weren't really making money, but we were just trying it. And we're just gonna basically take that out on its staff and just cut a whole bunch of people because we are basically just blowing so much money we didn't know what was going on. And it's just a bad look for the industry, and it isn't sustainable at all. They have to give or take somewhere with their creative process because this just ain't working. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but it's a lot to cover.
Yeah, I mean, the whole situation's kind of messed up because, like, this is not just Bungie, but, like, the whole industry. Like, you mentioned Epic. Like, I don't care what Epic say, right? They make more money than anyone, right? They have Fortnite prints money, literally. They have their own store where, like, look, they take their cut. Like, when they say they need to tighten the belt, I don't believe that. I really don't. They had Fall Guys and still have Fall Guys, and then they lay off apparently the entire studio and don't tell the players about it. Like, I don't know what's going on. People want, like, we want transparency in the industry, and obviously we aren't getting it. Like, industry-wide, there's, like, something going on. Games are bloated. Like, another tangent, maybe it's because, like, a lot of developers obviously this doesn't apply to Bungie, but like all these games now have to be open world. They have to be 90 hours long to justify the price, in my opinion. But like I don't know, it's just weird because you have like probably one of the best years in gaming ever. 2023 is going to go down alongside 2007, and like apparently like all these companies are failing to make money. Like, what's happening? Like, I don't know. I think maybe like 5 years from now, we're probably gonna know everything about it. But like, unless I bet there's another crash in the next 2 years in somewhere, some form. Just something's happening. But that's the Bungie stuff, unfortunately. And I hope things get better. I have seen some kind of angry tweets by some of the developers. Like, a lot of them are not happy because a year ago, I believe Sony put out a statement saying like no one's going to get laid off, and here we are now. It's like they were just told about it. It's such a shame. But yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. So on to more positive stuff. Microsoft had their very first Xbox partner preview, and before we get into the games, I want to say I loved the format. It was just game. No talking. No, hey, look at this concept art for a game that comes out 5 years from now. It was just game trailers. Just game trailers. And I loved it. But yeah, I'll go over all the games quickly and we'll talk about the whole thing. So, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. That game looks good. They basically showed off an entire mode that's Animal Crossing, but it's Yakuza. So, hey, I think a lot of people are really going to dig that. There's a new game announced called Ikaru Will Not Die. Looks like an over-the-top action game. The horror game Still Wakes the Deep looks really good. It's a horror game set on an oil rig, which I think is going to be really cool. RoboCop Rogue City, again, I think that game looks fantastic if you're a RoboCop fan, because remember, we never got a third film. There was never a third film at all. Never a crappy TV series. We just got 2 films in that Nintendo Entertainment System game that no one could ever finish. Anyway, we got Dungeons of Hinterberg. It looks really colourful. It's got, obviously, dungeons. Looks pretty cool. Spirits of the North 2, where you play as a little fox. The finals. I missed out on the beta for the finals. It looks like a ton of fun. It's a first-person shooter. It looks super realistic. Manor Lords, which is coming to PC. Ark Survival Ascended, which is a remake of Ark Survival Evolved, but it's in Unreal Engine 5, and it looks really good. Alan Wake 2 got its new gameplay trailer, but the big standout, the one that really stood out, was Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta, but remake. And that game is exactly what I said it would be. It's the same game, but with gorgeous graphics. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I was very impressed with the level of fidelity in the remake, and what can I say? I'm impressed. I didn't expect it to look that good. Logan, what did you think of the partner preview overall and all the games?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this format. I think it's a nice change of pace to have, and it allows them to have a bunch of different shows throughout the year. Like you can have one of your big, Xbox Directs or Developer Directs where you jump in and it's like Bethesda focused, or Starfield or a Hi-Fi Rush or whatever, and then you can have this kind of show where it's like, okay, this is what our friends in the industry are doing, and guess what? They're coming to Xbox. Let's have a look at them. And you jump in. There's no cringy jokes or dialogue. There's not a bunch of people just sitting around on a couch making awkward eye contact, trying to, speed this along or somehow keep a conversation going. It's just bang, 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 game after game after game. I liked the show. The games that were shown were great. I'm really big into Still Wakes the Deep because I love the Chinese Room and the Soma, and everyone's gone to the Rapture type games, and this is from them and their work. They also have done Amnesia. So this is, if you're a big horror fan like me, and Jamie, then this is absolutely one you should check out. I haven't checked out the 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 beta for the multiplayer game. I've heard good things though. And, Alan Wake 2, obviously, we've waxed poetic about. And the other ones look great too. So, all in all, it was a good event. A good B event, I'd say.
Yeah, I think a lot of people. When I was looking at the live chat while the show was going on, you had the inevitable, GTA 6, GTA 6. Where's GTA 6? Spoiler alert: GTA 6 won't be announced at any showcase. They're gonna announce it at their own time, whenever they want, and that's gonna be that. And by the way, speaking of GTA 6, did anyone actually believe the air quote rumors that they were going to announce the game with a trailer in October? Because GTA 6 has trended every bloody day. Every bloody day for the past 2 months. Logan, you've probably seen them posts, right?
Yeah, like I honestly think at this point it's like every time somebody says GTA 6 or tries to bring it up and make it trend, Rockstar internally delays the game for another year. It's like it's just it'll happen when it happens. And that leak with the massive amount of gameplay and other stuff did not help the situation. So I still don't expect to see that for quite some time.
Yeah, they probably put that announcement off for another year because of that whole thing. But people stop falling for the whole GTA 6 leak thing. It's not leaked. Well, what leaked a year ago leaks. But, there is no trailer leak. And by the way, that fake GTA 6 logo going around, why would it say 6 twice in the same logo? There's the Roman numeral, and then it says 6 in letters. No company is that stupid that they write the same number twice in the same logo. That just really annoyed me. But yeah, GTA 6, that's not going to be at a showcase. A lot of people thought there was going to be some Final Fantasy there. I'm not going to lie, I thought Pixel remasters were going to be announced there. Because remember, Square Enix, they have made a quote-unquote commitment to bring more Final Fantasy games to Xbox outside of the MMO. But yeah. Anyway, back to the show. It was a good show. It was a really good show. Metal Gear Solid 3, I didn't expect there at all because it was announced during the Sony showcase. And it was there. It looks great. As someone that's played Metal Gear Solid 3 a lot, I could tell you it's a one-to-one game with better graphics. And it looked like finer tuned gameplay. Which, you know what? It's not necessarily a bad thing. I will say this, though. Logan, you obviously went through all the Metal Gear games back in the day, right?
I haven't been through all of them, but I'm familiar enough to kind of have an understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, so Metal Gear Solid games are hilariously short. It's the one thing about Metal Gear Solid people don't really talk about. You can finish Metal Gear Solid 2 in a few hours. You can finish 3 in a few hours. 90% of the time in that game is spent in the codec where you're talking to someone. So, when I say that remake, and I'm thinking, that looks gorgeous. Do I see them launching that game out at $70? No. You can't launch a game that short at $70. That you just can't. If you go to How Long to Beat, people can regularly finish it in 10 hours without even trying. And I think that'll be one of those games that it's like £49, $50 or something. It's a gorgeous game, don't get me wrong, and I'll be there day one. But I can't see them listing that as a full price title, even if it is gorgeous. But yeah, that aside, good showcase, and yeah, I hope they keep the format. Like you're saying, we don't need developers and presenters awkwardly talking to each other. We get it, right? We get it. You're proud of your game, just short, right? If you want to do the developer thing in its own video on YouTube, that's cool. In fact, I still watch them, but people go to Nintendo Directs because of the format. It's game, 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 game. Introducing new game, and it just works. It's a format that's true and tested. But yeah, good showcase. I would give it a high B. There wasn't anything like colossally huge announced there, but it was an enjoyable show. I hope they do more in the future. And like you were saying, they have multiple shows throughout the year now. Um, Microsoft used to be like only E3, everything at E3, and this year they had the developer direct in January, where they had new stuff to show off and release that day. Then they had the E3 showcase, summer showcase. Then they went to Gamescom, showed some stuff off. Then they were at Tokyo Game Show, where I think that's where the Final Fantasy 14 was announced for Xbox. And the Paris Games Week soon. They also at BlizzCon, because they own them now. And then they had that, and I just think it's good to see Microsoft actually have multiple things throughout the year, because the wait till E3 thing became a meme, But it's good to see that change, and yeah, good show. Anyway, we'll move on. Still got a bunch of crap to talk about because it's been a busy week in the gaming space. Okay, let's talk about a new PlayStation game that came out. We want to talk about it because this particular developer got involved in the console wars, and it's like I like to observe, right? I'm really good at paying attention to detail and the way people act, and I've never seen a developer do this. So the developers of Quantum Error, maybe about 6 months ago, came out and said, like, look, the Series S is hard to develop for, and plus it needs the power of the PlayStation 5 SSD to even work. Fair enough. Bog standard type of thing we might see now if a developer wants attention. However, this developer, they were retweeting PlayStation fanboys, liking the posts, and they were like even replying to people. Even individual developers from Quantum Error were saying, look, we're releasing on PlayStation because we love PlayStation. And, Twitter being Twitter, people kept them receipts. People were screenshotting those replies, the retweets, the likes and stuff. Anyway, the game comes out, or gets reviewed, shall I say, and it gets I think it was a 47 on Metacritic. Which, remember, we live in a world where I get told Starfield is trash because it's a low 80s. This game's in its 40s. And they came out with, the wall of text thing we used to see from developers. They were saying how they're proud of the game, how it's going to enable them to make more AAA style games, how they don't have the tools and resources of a modern AAA game. And they actually mentioned in their post that they were being attacked by fanboys, and fanboys were making fun of them with their reviews. Well, that's when the receipts came out. People were bringing up how that developer, and I've never seen a developer do this, by the way. I've never seen a developer get involved in console wars. They found out, they effed around and found out, and it bit them back in the arse, basically. And yeah, wild. Absolutely wild. I've never seen this before. I've been covering gaming on Twitter for a decade. I've been doing YouTube for a few years, well, a long time now. Properly for like 3 or 4, whatever. And I've never seen a developer do this. It's bizarre, but I was like watching it from afar. I didn't really say anything about it. I didn't get involved. I just let it play out. And yeah, Logan, what do you think? Because that was wild yesterday.
Yeah, like first off, like no one wants to see games, absolutely tank and come out with a 45. I mean, that's like Gollum and ET on the Atari, and like that's really really gross, nasty, bad. Of course you can say, it's only 4 devs and it's a small team, and I totally get that and I totally understand that. And I absolutely believe they wish their game was better state than it is, and I totally believe that. And I wish it was too. It's just the fact that when they when you're either an individual or a studio or whatever, and you call attention to yourself and you take shots at other things, and you try to stir up toxic stuff, then it has a habit of bringing you back into it, even if that's not what you want to be doing. And so, lo and behold, when the jokes are funny at the moment and you're riding along with it, and then things come to pass and it's like, oh, okay. It's like the Denzel meme. It's like, no, it's not so funny now, is it? And it's very much like that. To where it's, this energy was put out there and this energy was returned. And it just goes to show, be positive, be nice, don't go after folks and start up console nonsense if you don't expect that to be remembered. And so I wish them well. I hope the game bounces back. I hope this is a good learning experience and they can go, you know what? Next time, this is not a good idea. And then go forth. The game sounds like it'll come to Xbox at some point. Not sure how well received it's going to be by Xbox community, but it was an interesting lesson in game development, in game community interaction, and scoring, and just the process.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like saying this for any developer. Seeing a game get a low score, I can't imagine what that does to someone that's worked on a game for years. But that being said, the developer got involved in the console war, and I think I'll never understand the concept of, hey, we're releasing this game on this platform. We plan to bring it to a different platform later, but we're going to trash that platform at the same time. And if you look at that person's likes, they were liking really toxic people, and people will remember if they bring out their game to Xbox. People will remember. It's as simple as that. But I just maybe they did it for publicity because everyone's talking about it, and I don't know. I've just never seen that in the gaming space before. But yeah, just felt the need to bring that up because, man, I've just never seen a developer do that at all. Crazy. Quantum Error, and the thing is, I don't really know much about the game. I haven't really paid.
Fireman and horror is all I know.
Yeah, and I've seen a picture of a fireman and that's it. That's all I know about the game. But I don't know. I think when it comes to it's been a great year for games. A lot of games are going to get overlooked, but if you're getting a 40 on Metacritic, and all the people in your likes and replies are obvious toxic people that have gone around saying various things, there's people that have told me Starfield is trash, worst game ever, Metacritic, lol 80s or whatever, and those same people have replied to Quantum Error and said, let's go, game of the year, or I'm buying this day one, and you and I don't want to use the term defending, but if the game gets 40 something on Metacritic, and all of a sudden all the executives and articles are paid off for Microsoft, the big problem with people is that they're not consistent, right? And nobody's been consistent with this. Is Starfield trash because it's low 80s and this other game's fantastic because it's 40s? It's crazy. Nobody's consistent, and it really bothers me. But yeah, that whole situation was messed up. We'll move on because we still have a lot of stuff to talk about. We're about an hour and a half into the show. If you're enjoying it, please like, share, and subscribe. Again, YouTube. Not good at sharing stuff these days. Super chats are live if you want to support the show and all that stuff. So, BlizzCon. BlizzCon's right around the corner, and apparently Xbox fans should maybe pay attention to it. It's going to have a super long opening ceremony. I think I've read 2.5 hours, which is very long. And basically it looks like the new Blizzard game's going to be announced there. I think at the minute it's called Project Odyssey. It's a fantasy survival game, apparently. There's some artwork floating around. And this is potentially going to be the first Blizzard game that's going to launch in Game Pass. This is just a guess. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to it because Blizzard know how to make games with, character. As much as I don't play Overwatch, the Overwatch characters stand out. World of Warcraft has amazing character design and just like the plot and all that stuff. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to it because this is the first Activision Blizzard game that will obviously have some sort of Xbox, maybe exclusivity or Game Pass launch. Logan, are you looking forward to this at all? What do you think it'll turn out to be, and what effect it's going to have on the whole Xbox situation?
Yeah, I'm super stoked for BlizzCon. I'll admit I have not watched them in the past, but I will jump in for this one. I've seen past videos like the cringy "y'all have phones, right?" video that's infamous, and some of these past interviews that showed the toxic culture that they had under Activision for a long time. But new culture, new slate, new year, new parent company. It's the perfect time to kick off BlizzCon, and I expect to see Odyssey there, and I just I don't know. I just have this hope, or maybe it's me just trying to will something into existence, but I just hope or feel that maybe there's going to be something Heroes of the Storm related with that massive patch they just put out of the blue. It had been like a year or so since they had done anything. The game had just been basically on just like maintenance mode. And then lo and behold, right after they're acquired, boom, this patch happens. It's like, I don't know, connect the dots. Maybe there's something happening with there. Kick the tires on it, see if people are interested. There's always been the StarCraft rumblings that something StarCraft is in the works. How big of a project or what exactly it is, who knows? But it wouldn't absolutely floor me if some StarCraft thing was there. It's not a report by any means, but just it wouldn't absolutely floor me. I'd be very, very happy if it did. But, if it doesn't, no worries. But it's just yet again another celebration of the industry. I think Odyssey will be the first Blizzard game to launch into Game Pass. And depending on the contracts, because sometimes these things have some real fangs to them, it might not be exclusive. But I'll call it as exclusive for now for Xbox and PC. And it'll be in Game Pass. It's kind of going to be Fable-y and or Everwildish kind of vibes and our aesthetic, mixed with survival stuff. Bill called them the Pixar of gaming, which is a very high praise. So definitely tune into the event. Should be a great time. On a side tangent, it's really fun that Xbox has all these fan con events now. As first party events, you have QuakeCon, you have BlizzCon, you have Minecon now. Like it's just really fun. They have all the cons in Xbox.
Yeah, I'll be wondering if it'll ever get to the point where they'll just kind of merge BlizzCon and QuakeCon into the same thing and just call it Microsoft Xbox Con or something like that. But, it'd probably be better being separate. But yeah, it's going to be a big deal because you mentioned Warcraft, World of Warcraft, and I think, like, there could be something there because World of Warcraft is available to play with the controller now. And I believe they've brought action-based combat to the controller. So rather than having, like, tab targeting, where you press a key, wait for an action to happen, and then it happens, have it more action-focused, like an action game. I think it could really be, really popular. I know that there's a chunk of the World of Warcraft fan base that wanted to be on consoles as well because, like, you need World of Warcraft to grow. I don't know if it can grow anymore on PC because if you wanted to play World of Warcraft at some point, the chances are that you already have on PC. But like the console space is so open. MMOs are successful on console. We have like people don't talk about, but Star Trek Online is healthy. Elder Scrolls Online, huge on console. Final Fantasy 14 is huge on PlayStation. It's coming to Xbox. The sky's the limit. And you mentioned StarCraft. Like I don't know if we can call it port begging, but we can call it IP begging. Like I think the Coalition would be perfect for StarCraft. There's something about that universe. You can watch all the trailers on YouTube in like 4K now. Like that universe looks so cool, and I don't know. I think those games would work well on a controller. I've watched enough of it to know that it would work well on a controller. But yeah, it's just cool to see more Blizzard stuff. And this is basically the first major like Blizzard game that's going to be in. I'm just saying Xbox Game Pass. But yeah, that's just around the corner. I think it's 2 days long, the event, I believe. I've got the list here. Oh yeah, November 3rd to November 4th. It should be cool. I think people should check it out. Again, the opening night is on YouTube. All good stuff. You know what? Let's get into the meat and potatoes because some big stuff happened. Now, there's been some restructuring going on at Xbox because, it's such a big organization now. Now that they have Activision, it's still hard to believe that they have Activision and Blizzard. Like, corporate-wise, they are massive. Phil Spencer is in charge of gaming at Microsoft, so, like, who really is in charge of Xbox now? Because it's kind of just been Phil and, like, Matt Booty. Well, Sarah Bond is now the president of Xbox. Absolutely massive news. And, by the way, let's get this out the way. Excuse me. I'm still sick. I knew that people would automatically go there. The second it was announced, people made it about skin color. And I normally don't talk about these things in the channel. I just thought, really, like, if you've paid attention to the ABK stuff and just what Sarah Bond's been like on gaming for the longest time, like, she knows her stuff. She knows gaming. If you read, like, what she was like in court with the whole Activision thing, like, Sarah Bond's fantastic. Like, I don't understand, like, people had to make it about skin color. She got the job because of skin color. No, she really didn't. Like,
And the fact that she was a woman too, like they
yeah,
tried to make it like I saw a fairly decently large content creator with a good following and some other stuff, post stuff and spread stuff basically like very misogynistic type stuff about like, oh, it's basically just gonna be Candy Crush type things for
I saw that.
Xbox and like a whole bunch of stuff like that. I'm like, get out of here. I'm like, if you've seen what she posts every day and what her dad is obsessed with Diablo, her whole family games, she's very much into it. That court case, she was like probably the sharpest person in the room. And she's brilliant and knows gaming inside and out and is a hardcore gamer of all kinds of different genres and backgrounds. So people trying to make it sound like she's a quote unquote stereotypical soccer mom that only plays Candy Crush or simple air quotes games and doesn't really understand the industry or was a cherry picked diversity hire. I'm like, get out of here. That is, choose your word of choice nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, like, when Phil Spencer tweets in general, like, it's normally, like, him posting, like, a clip or a screenshot or something, if it's not, like, a message regarding a situation. Like, Sarah Bond's job does not entail tweeting, but all of her tweets are game-related stuff. Like, and again, if you go to the ABK stuff, she knows what she's talking about. I think, in the modern age, people, like, jump to conclusions and think about things a certain way, but, like, she got a position being president of one of the top gaming brands in the world. You kind of have to be a bit knowledgeable about that stuff, right? So, like, take a step back. People overreact straight away. Look at the posts. Look at past, like, a track record and all that stuff. A resume, I shall say. And, like, she knows what she's talking about. You can't become the president of a platform holder if you don't know what you're talking about. People will bring up and I hate these terms. I don't talk about any of this stuff on the channel because it's gaming. But, like, people bring up diversity hiring and that stuff. It's like, you can't get a position like that if you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know your stuff. And people bringing up that stuff, honestly, I'm putting this out there, they are stupid. They are really stupid. Like, she knows what she's talking about. You have to have the experience for the job. She has it. And like even people for years have been saying, "Oh, she's probably going to be in line after Phil." Well, now she's president.
100%.
Yeah, like since day one, she's been a good person for Xbox, and that's that. And anyway, congrats to her. She's going to do a fantastic job. People have been saying for like 4 years she's going to end up being like taking Phil's place down the line. Well, now she's president. And Microsoft's president, was it CEO of gaming at Microsoft? There's so many different terms over there. And Matt Booty is now in charge of is Matt Booty? He's in charge of the publishing arm for Microsoft and Bethesda. So like 2 huge positions. Xbox, I think. If you look at it from the outside, Microsoft, they have these publishing arms now. You have Xbox, you have Bethesda, and then you have Activision. And people for the longest time now have been wondering, is it all going to be merged into one? And it looks like maybe over the next 2 years, they're going to kind of be like that. So when you see an Activision game or Bethesda game, it's basically going to be Xbox. So, yeah, things are mixed up. People have been wondering, what does this mean for Xbox long term? I honestly don't think it really changes much. I think that, if you look at the past 10 years, actually, let's go back to 2013. The future of Microsoft with Xbox was really unclear. They had about 5 studios. They had the Coalition, Turn 10. They had Lionhead, who were let go. They had Rare, Mojang, and 343. And they were all making one game. Minecraft was already a thing. So, like, the future of Microsoft with Xbox was so unclear that as a content creator, I had no idea what the hell was coming. On the gamer side, like, Logan, you have to admit, up until 2018 when they start getting studios, nobody knew what was going to happen with Microsoft.
Yeah, there were some famous tweets that get clowned now about basically like they were worried that they didn't have a budget or they were going to get shut down or they were this close to, being sold off or extinct. Like there were dark times before Phil took over and all the studio buys and giving teams creative freedom and Game Pass, the gamble of Game Pass. Like all that changed everything.
Yeah, and you look at them now, they start purchasing studios in 2018 with Ninja Theory, Compulsion Games, Playground, and I'm sure I'm missing one.
Undead Labs.
And
they made the Initiative.
Yeah, they made the Initiative, who are making now Perfect Dark. Then they got Obsidian and In Exile, 2 massive RPG developers. They got Double Fine. The Double Fine one was the most surprising one to me because they just announced it out of nowhere. But it's a good fit. And, the whole Bethesda thing, when they announced the Bethesda thing, I think it was the day before the Xbox Series X pre-orders went online. So that was
brilliant move.
Yeah, it was a great move. And like you look at Microsoft now and I've talked about this before, and it was my biggest gripe with Xbox. Xbox never had a roadmap for games. They were relying too much on second party. Scalebound was announced, it gets cancelled after much scrutiny. Crackdown gets announced, showing off, and people were like, this doesn't look like the game we were, shown. And like the future was so unclear because again, first party, they weren't putting out much. And now, actually go back further. So Microsoft used to have this obsession with having a holiday lineup. I'm sure everyone in chat remembers this. They would have a trailer every year, and they basically release all of their games between August and November, and that would be to push console sales into Christmas. And that was Microsoft's metric for pushing games. Get your game out, hopefully it pushes hardware. Well, over time, Microsoft shifted from, we're going to have a console, but games are also going to be on PC, and we have this thing called Game Pass. Well, Microsoft's metric isn't console sales anymore. And by the way, the fact that some podcasts and people, like, they struggle to, like, even understand this. Microsoft's metric is players. Players spend money. Players stay subscribed in Game Pass. So now Microsoft, they can't have a holiday lineup anymore. They have to have games released throughout the entire year. So you can't just subscribe to Game Pass in, let's say, November and play, Halo, Forza, Starfield all in one go. Like, you are tempted to subscribe and stay subscribed throughout the entire year. So next year they have Avowed, Hellblade 2, Flight Simulator 2024, Towerborn, and unannounced games, which are all going to release throughout the year. And, I hope that's crystal clear to more people because, again, Microsoft does not do the holiday lineup thing anymore. Microsoft only used to care about selling consoles during Christmas. Now they push consoles year round. Game Pass is now their metric. And, Microsoft having, Sarah Bond at the top now and Matt Booty on the publishing arm, I think it makes Microsoft more stable, because you couldn't have Phil Spencer in charge of Microsoft Gaming and then doing all the Xbox stuff as well as the PC stuff and the publishing arm stuff. Like, if you look at Microsoft now as opposed to 10 years ago, as an Xbox fan, you had no bloody idea what was coming, game-wise, or if the company was secure. Now you can look at Xbox and think, wow, they are secure. The head of Microsoft came out and said they are doubling down on gaming. Like, that is huge. Like, and that doesn't mean buying another Activision-sized company. It means they are all in with gaming. It's something people shouldn't have to worry about. Whereas 10 years ago, you didn't know if Xbox was going to be around in 18 months. So, I think, Microsoft's on this is a huge thing for Microsoft. Logan, before we change subject, have you got anything else to say on the whole, Microsoft being where it is now?
Yeah, I got a few thoughts on it, if you don't mind. Yeah, like, back to Sarah Bond, like, I've been on the beginning since I think is, it's been pretty clear, like, to me at least, it seems, that she's Phil's, handpicked heir apparent. They haven't said that or anything, but the way she's been positioned, once she joined the company, she's risen up the ranks and has been a rock star behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. And, like, from reports and documents and other things, like, she was a key figure in getting ABK across the finish line. Like, she is all in on this and she knows how to run this empire. And basically, they have split Phil's job, what it used to be, like when Xbox had 5 studios. You remember back then when they had a handful of studios? Where one person could run everything. Now it is so big, it is like a Roman Empire where you have to have, you have to diversify, jobs and split roles to people just so you can manage things effectively. And bringing in Bethesda under Matt Booty along with the Xbox games allows them to keep a closer eye on things, not have a stranglehold or oppressive overreach, but make sure there's not another Redfall thing where, there's not squeaky wheels or anything going on that they don't know about. Like, if they need something, they get it done ASAP. They need teams to help with something. They want to try a new IP, want to bring back something else, yada, yada, yada. It's covered, and they're all in, under close eye. And that's what has been needed desperately. I am curious to see what becomes of Blizzard and Activision once, Bobby's gone at the end of the year. Like, whether they just promote someone from within, like a Mike Ybarra to head of it, or if they bring in somebody, or if they just eliminate that role and combine it with more for Sarah or more for Matt. But, so that's something to keep an eye on. But, yeah, Sarah in charge of business and strategy and the platform and growing relationships is, like, ace of spades decision. Matt has always been good at the studio relationships and, managing since he was brought over from Minecraft, Mojang originally. So it seems like everybody's where their best position to succeed. They had an insane amount of growth and profit put into their financials they just released. And, Sarah Hood, who's the CFO, Microsoft says they're going to have like a gargantuan next quarter of gaming when ABK is included. And it's going to be just like ludicrous numbers that they're going to jump up by. And so you have all that taken into account and, clarity across the board for all these teams working together in different roles. Everything makes sense. Everything's stable. They're all in on gaming. They're doubling down on it. And, gaming is going to, like, not only a core pillar of Microsoft, it may become their one or their two most profitable, most dependent and relied upon revenue streams going forward besides, Windows and stuff. So all in on gaming, great time to be an Xbox guy, and, the future, sky's the limit.
Yeah, the whole future of Xbox thing, it's all bright and stuff, but I think we'll quickly mention so the price of the Xbox Series S just went up in Brazil. I'm trying to say it's $300 now, $300 increase or something like that. Basically, as far as I've read, the S is the same price as the PlayStation 5 digital. I did read that somewhere. Unfortunately, when it comes to this topic, I don't know much about it. Like, it's kind of like we know the price has gone up. We don't know why. Xbox Brazil is kind of like doing its own thing, but we really don't know the situation. I am trying to find out what's going on at the minute with all that stuff. When it comes to the Brazil stuff, we will go in depth next week, just because I literally don't know. The information that's public at the minute isn't really that clear. I will say this though: the Series S is meant to be your cheap console. It's meant to be the console that it's the entry console, right? It could be a secondary console for someone, have it on your desk. Basically, the cheap entry console, and if you raise the price, it doesn't make any sense. And I get, like, countrywide, say internationally, the inflation around the world right now is getting bloody ridiculous. But I've never been a fan of putting that onto the consumer. That rubs me the wrong way, and I think that Microsoft, they need to. I don't know, like, there's something weird going on with pricing over there. Microsoft needs to be crystal clear. Again, they've had a good, year publicity-wise, shall I say. And there's a lot of Xbox fans in Brazil, and I think this is not doing them any good in any way at all. Why raise the price that much? Like, I maybe understand $50, like, given the circumstances with everything that's going on, but like $300, like, that's bad. That's really bad. Again, I'm going to look into it for next week, because I'm not going to speak about something I'm not fully informed about. And they did change something else when it comes to one of their policies. Again, we're going to talk about it next week. The controller thing. So, unofficial controllers or unlicensed controllers, people are starting to get up all these pop-ups saying, hey, November, your controller's not going to work anymore. And I've been asked a few times about this. If you go to any video game store and they sell a third-party controller, chances are you'll see this round green sticker on it. Those controllers will work. Most licensed Xbox controllers are wired. And I think this is going to basically enable third-party developers to make wireless controllers. So, like, if you buy the 360 controller that's licensed, right, the 360 style controller, it's wired. Like, almost every single controller is wired, and this is going to enable developers manufacturers to make wireless controllers. And also, I think cheating on console has become a massive issue. It really has. if you play Call of Duty, there's a ton of cheaters that use I think it's called a Cronus Max, so they can use a keyboard and mouse when they're playing in a controller-only lobby, and it's a mess. It really is. Like, I put it like this: if you only play on console and you don't really play on PC, like, think about it like this: if you're on a browser on a PC or laptop or whatever, when you go to close the window or the tab, you never miss, right? No matter how much you move in your hand, you never miss closing the tab. And people have pinpoint accuracy using a mouse. So if you play in controller only in Call of Duty or insert any other first-person shooter, you are going to get absolutely owned if you're playing against keyboard and mouse. Like, it's not fair. So I'm thinking this is part of the policy. Logan, what's your thought of the situation? Because, like, I kind of understand it because, again, cheating is extremely prevalent, and it looks like it'll lead to more third-party manufacturers to make wireless controllers.
Yeah, like on the accessories thing and controller thing, I get it. Like on one hand, it's kind of a bummer for some of these smaller companies that makes these accessories and things. But on the other hand, you can also view it as this is a way to make sure that these things are approved and meet a process and a certain bar threshold for standard and quality and reliability. So, I get it. It's a bummer for some, but I understand why they're doing it. And like you said, there have been so many jerry-rigged little controllers and mods and things that, are ridiculous out there, especially in the competitive space. And this will help cut back on that, which is a good thing. As for the Brazil thing, like you said, like I prefer not to ramble off on or go on big, soapbox things on stuff that I'm not well versed in and fully aware of because I don't want to come off like a moron if it's something I really don't know what I'm talking about. So, with more information, we can talk on it. I will say on the surface, it looks really bad. But, obviously, once we get more information, we can look at it and assess it and talk about it.
Yeah, next week we'll talk about it, but I think that, the controller thing aside, the controller thing, again, I think it's just going to lead to less cheating and more wireless controllers. Because every time I talk about a new controller, like that 360 one that was announced a while back by Hyperkin, I always get asked, "Oh, is it wireless?" And I always have to reply, "Nope." I think maybe Razer are the only other manufacturer I think that do wireless controllers for Xbox. But again, that's a different situation. The Brazil thing, we'll talk about it when I know more because that is a crappy situation. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to talk about before we close out the show?
Oh, just one little happy birthday to Hexen, which is 28 now. And, shouts and wink wink, nudge nudge to Phil to work with Night Dive and bring it back. That's about it.
Yeah, he always mentions Hexen in interviews. like you have id, so I wouldn't surprise me. I think that's the cool thing about the whole ABK thing. It's that, and Phil's even said this, like any studio, they can tackle any IP they want. So like, who knows what we'll see over the next few years. Again, we'll be closing the show in a minute. I apologize if people have heard me cough throughout the show. Lung infection is extremely painful. I wouldn't recommend people get it. Hopefully we'll be better next week. But yeah, I think that, Xbox is in a good place. The Brazil thing definitely needs to be sorted out. It doesn't help that, inflation worldwide, like here in the UK, it's gotten ridiculous. Like, the price of everything's gone up. I don't know why console manufacturers, by the way, they've been messing up lately. The PlayStation 5 Slim Digital Edition costs $50 more than the previous digital edition. So like, console manufacturers in general are trying to figure out how to raise the price. If you look at the Switch rumors, Switch 2, they rumored, and again, it's rumors, but I mention it anyway. It's rumored that they're going to have two versions, one that's backwards compatible and one that isn't. By the way, I think that's the dumbest thing they can do. But yeah, like all these companies like tightening down, trying to find ways to get money, and yeah, it's not good. Again, we'll mention stuff next week when we know more. Everyone in chat's been awesome this week. Again, I apologize for the coughing. The chest infection has kicked me in. We'll be back at the same time next week. I just put out a video last night. YouTube just isn't sharing this month for some reason. It's 10 biggest games coming to Xbox in November. Hope people enjoy it. The link is in the description down below. The link is also in the description down below for our socials. We're on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. I don't care what people say. But yeah, we'll be back at the same time next week. Might have another video out next week as well. Again, we'll talk about all the stuff we couldn't this week. Anyway, everyone in chat's been awesome. We are out. Peace and happy Halloween, everybody. And we...